Right. So creating a work breakdown structure is nothing much rocket science. I mean, basically, after you define the scope, now again the ball is back to your court as a project manager to create a work breakdown structure. I mean, now you're trying to detail out your project plan. So you might have to create your something called a work breakdown structure where you try to subdivide certain deliverables into more and more smaller manageable components and try to structure it out to more manageable components and so that you get more visibility. So you as a project manager, now you start work on the scope and together with your team and you try to detail it out into smaller manageable components to create the work breakdown structure. So it's basically a hierarchical decomposition. We call it a hierarchical decomposition where you try to break it into take the total scope and break into areas. I mean, in a layman terms, if you can understand it, say if you want to build a house in your private life, your architecture will give you the high level, I mean, basically the plan and the 3D diagrams of the this thing, and then you have to start bring it down into more manageable components, your electrical components, your structural components, your woodwork, your flooring. So now you start decomposing into more manageable components so that you can draw up a proper project plan and a proper costing for your building your house. So where do you stop? Where do you, so sorry, just to so again in creating inputs for the creating a work breakdown structure, obviously the scope management plan will give you the governance part of it that we had discussed earlier, the how factor, how we are going to break down the structure, to what degree that you are going to break down, and the scope statement, which we just finished, will be the prime input for it. You might have to go and refer back certain requirement documentation or the requirement matrices, and that is in the traceability matrices back again. Once you start decomposing into more manageable components, obviously you will have to refer back. You will have to refer back to your stakeholders. You will have to refer back to your customer again to get more clarification on it. Sometimes you're bounded by your organization's standards that they adhere, development standards that they adhere, and also the organization's process and procedures. Or if you're in a large PMO, your PMO will define you. This is how you should structure your work breakdown, whether it should be phase driven or whether you should be deliverable driven. So they will guide you in a more high level how you as a project manager should break it down in your work breakdown structure. So dividing how much to divide. I mean, it's more judgmental call. I mean, how much more to divide. Basically, it's up to you. The lowest level that you usually basically divide is called a work package. Again, just to understand, again coming back to your house project. So from the entire project, you're dividing maybe phase 1, phase 2. You can divide. So first breakdown will be phase 1. You're trying to, since you have a limited budget, you're trying to put up the ground floor first, and you maybe next year you're going to do the upper floor. So phase 1, ground floor. Then we start dividing ground floor foundations, ground floor electrical work, ground floor windows and doors. You then go back into down ground floor woodwork. From the woodwork, you go down woodwork, maybe your doors and windows and your flooring. So flooring you can again divide it by, again you can divide it maybe your stairway and your hall flooring, and then the hall flooring, your hall flooring can go into such detail. So where do you stop? It's up to you. Where you can manage your costing and manage your duration. So where do you stop is it's also important. because that will be your cost. That will be where you will control your cost. So when you're budgeting, you will allocate your loan that you obtain to build your house, 200,000 for the flooring. So I allocate 200,000 out of the 5 million loan I had taken to build my house, 200,000 to the flooring, another 100,000 to the stairway, another 100,000 to the stairway. So, so how much uh, the buckets of that bucket, maybe flooring, the flooring guy will take, I will take 4 weeks to do it. The stairway guy who will take to do the flooring on the stairway, I will take 4 weeks to do it with the woodwork. So, um, how much you're going to break it down and how much will all depend on your experience, the work package level, and the budget allocation and the control factor. So how much of controllability you need. I mean, so you know that you allocated 200,000 for your flooring, and then if it exceeded 230,000 rupees for some reason, so you are more control of the budget of the 230,000. Okay, you understand that's where the entire budget goes, but the budget went off, or the duration that is exceeding the duration. He asked the flooring man asked for 3 weeks, but he took 4 weeks. So where the controllability comes in terms of cost and duration and the measurement that can be comes in. So that is the work package level that you can define the how much of greater degree that you can go. So obviously in larger projects you start decomposing into phases, then phases into again sub phases, and you go on to a level that you can have a control. We call it a control account on the time, and a control account on the cost, where you can control the cost and the time and a work package level. So that is decomposing into work packages. So again, and the primary factor is expert judgment. This is where you bring your experience of your previous project, how much degree that you are going to decompose your deliverables. So some examples I have given through. I mean, so how you can decompose to your work packages. Maybe sometimes certain areas that you have to do, you can start decomposing like this. So it's all up to you. I mean, sometimes phases, as I told you, phase 1, phase 2, and within phase 1, you can start decomposing it into it. Sometimes you might select major deliverables. Major deliverables, you start decomposing from major deliverables, maybe hardware delivery, maybe software installation, then the first software drop, and second software drop. So likewise, you go on major deliverables. So there is no hard and fast rule. It can be a mix of it or whatever it is, as long as you as a project manager can manage it properly and cost it properly and account for the duration and control it, each work package. As far as you're comfortable, you can go on decomposing it to work breakdown structure. So I've given some examples. You can go through it. Again, a typical system development, testing, installation, designing. So that's more onto activity level. Major. What do you call it? Again, maybe deliverables, or maybe major milestones, maybe. Right. So, the concept of scope baseline pops up from here. So we had the scope statement where the overall scope is there. So now you divide it more into manageable components, and then in a structure like this, you might do not have the luxury of putting all the necessary detailing into the structure. So we basically, once you do a structure like this, then we number it. I think in the previous example it was properly numbered, something like this. We number it, and then what you want to include, the specific details that you want to include here, we can have something called a dictionary, like the data dictionary in database. So we'll have a work breakdown dictionary defining a small, you can have Excel sheet or whatever it is with some columns. You define 1.1.4 system requirement development, and you describe it, what you meant by that decomposition, and the sub activities you can put, who is responsible for that, what are the resources that is required, what is the budget you allocate for this WBS, this section only, if this is a woodwork, if this is the flooring, okay, who is going to do the flooring, what is the budget, what is the time frame for that, and what specific that you need. Maybe you have to buy teak wood, so you define the teak wood that is there, and the color that is there, the staining color. So any specific for each box, each what do you call, the work package here can be maintained separately in a separate table called the dictionary. So for example, this is one of the examples. So there are a number of formats there in the internet. It's up to you to define it. So you can have your ID, you can have your parent work package name, and key milestone within that. Also within that work package, what are the key deliverable milestones that is required. Maybe you have to purchase the wood, you have to purchase the stains. So key milestones that is required here. Or you can simply detail out your sub activities that is there, and the number of hours that is required, number of materials that is required, and the total cost for that package that is required. So any specific quality requirements, any specific acceptance criteria, maybe your customer, if you're in a building, if you're constructing in a construction project, maybe for each and every such thing, there's acceptance criteria for a certain, maybe wood quality, or the contractor who had to do a wood quality, maybe there's a sample testing or wood quality testing. So then you will have to, this will be our acceptance criteria for that. Any technical information, like you have to use teak wood with this stain to get it done. So or if any contract information, your subcontract, if you're especially in a construction project, maybe each work package you're subcontracting to another person, so those contractual information that can be done can be there. So again, so this is the WBS dictionary, which will define in more detail of as I told you, what is there in there, what is mentioned in the work package, together with the coding, the description, who's responsible, the estimates, the budgets for that each package. So all these three together, the scope statement, the project scope statement that we previously did, the work breakdown structure, and the WBS dictionary will be your scope baseline. That is what is called the scope baseline in project terms in theory. So this is one of the key things in project management. You get your scope baseline correct. So it's true. I mean, basically you get the scope correct, then your work breakdown structure correct, and the detailed description of each work package. I mean, it will give a fair degree detail of what is the scope. So that we try to freeze it. This is the scope baseline. And any controlling for this, any control activities, any deviations, any change requests, we always take from this scope baseline when it comes to scope changes. Yeah, so you don't need to get sophisticated what do you call solutions. A simple Excel would do on that.